Good day everyone, welcome to a new video, and today in our interview session we are interviewing the CEO of Akash, which is Greg Osuri. We're going to discuss decentralized clouds and everything that's needed to make it a more and fair market, and what the progress is of the project in itself and what it's trying to achieve. But before that, do not forget to subscribe to the channel beneath and also like this video. And now we are heading towards the interview. Have fun. So, as discussed in the intro, today we're going to do an interview with the CEO of Akash, that is Greg Osuri. Am I saying it right?
Welcome, yes, Greg. Got that right.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Michael.
How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. I just launched a fresh blockchain, so I still have the fresh blockchain smell, I suppose.
Still getting enough sleep after launching minute two?
I wish that were the case, but turns out, post-launch, 1 week post-launch is a lot more than pre-launch, because it's essentially coordination between, number of parties, be it exchanges, be it explorers, be it wallets, and a small difference in the balance or misprint is going to, piss people off.
Part of the game, you have to take care of the community as well, right? But we're definitely going to discuss that at a later stage in this interview. But first, who are you? What brought you to the blockchain space? What have you done in the past? Why did you choose the blockchain space? All types of questions that I want to discuss with you. So first of all, who are you for the audience?
Awesome. Oh, my existential question. I am Greg Osuri. I'm the CEO founder of Akash Network, and I'm an applied economist and a computer scientist. In the last 25 years or so as a programmer, my last 10 years have been primarily focused on building developer tooling, and I love developers. I founded a company called AngelHack, and AngelHack was essentially to take the idea of hackathons, which were a very underground concept back then, and make it mainstream. And by the time I left the company, we had about 150,000 developers in the ecosystem, and about, I would say, in about 50 cities around the world. I helped or foresaw the launch of incredible companies there. One of them, the most successful one, being Firebase. Firebase, as you know, is a widely used database today. It is Google Cloud's most favored product. So companies like that were launched at AngelHack, and I had an incredible opportunity to really understand developers, especially understand developers under duress, right? So you get about 36 hours to build a product and launch a product and take the product to market. What better way to understand developers and understand the patterns? That really led me on a path to solve this problem of taking your workloads, that means your applications that you develop on your computer, and take that to your customers by deploying on the cloud. And that path was the most extraneous, right? So you spend all these hours building your application, but now, you have to make sure the application is deployed and scalable and whatnot. And I decided to focus on that problem, and that's when I went deep into this then technologies that were upcoming called Linux containers, and eventually found myself contributing to a lot of the frameworks that are very popular now, and big one being Kubernetes. And I helped, in 2013, 2014 timeframe, really took that as loved this product and started contributing to it. And now Kubernetes is used by 80% of the cloud. So, and that journey led me to, founding the company called Overclock Labs, and essentially to take, this whole concept of making developers life easy, and take that to market, and using these technologies that I just talked about, Kubernetes and Docker, to market as well. Now they're very common technologies, but back then nobody really heard of these. And then as we were deploying these solutions that we develop to customers, we discovered that the customers running their own data centers are sitting on humongous underutilized resources, right? 85% or so of data center capacity that's deployed is underutilized. And we're talking about 8.2 million data centers. So that led us to the path of creating a Akash network. It was a natural sort of like progression to what we were doing. And so solving each problem on the way. And we found a problem that needed a solution that's decentralized and open and permissionless. And that's the birth of Akash network.
Well, that's a long road getting towards Akash, but are you also already longer in this blockchain space, as in you're a developer from yourself, or like in that corner, right?
Yeah,
Programmer more.
I'm open source developer. If you
Yeah.
check out my GitHub, you'll have an idea. I've written software that is used by the cloud stuff, cloud native tooling. You can see have several repositories with thousands of stars. Stars are something people give to you, or other developers sort of like give you as a recognition. And my co-founder as well, Adam, we both are open source developers. And the reason we found blockchain to be interesting, this was really, we all, dabble with Bitcoin to a certain degree as engineers in 2010 and 2011, buying some stuff on the internet. But really got serious into like the blockchain, the technology behind, Bitcoin, is when we were trying to solve the state consistency problem. So when don't want to go too technical, but one of the challenges that we were facing deploying our solution, which is edge computing solution back in 2016 or 2015 timeframe, was how do you make sure that data, the configuration data, is consistent across all data centers, sometimes even hundreds of data centers around the world, and that wherein we cannot rely on a single centralized source, right? So we had to develop a decentralized or peer-to-peer system, and we kind of home rolled our own system based on BitTorrent. If you remember BitTorrent,
The old BitTorrent,
and we
not the
added
new one.
Yeah, so we took BitTorrent and we added a Merkle tree structure on top of BitTorrent, because Merkle tree came from Git and it was a phenomenal data structure to ensure integrity of the data. And the BitTorrent protocol was phenomenal for replicating that data. So when we put Merkle tree and BitTorrent together, we end up with a blockchain. So that's how we sort of like ended up with a blockchain. And then we were like, well, we're doing everything a blockchain is supposed to do. You might as well, build go with a blockchain solution. And then we were dabbling around in 2016, 2017 timeframe with Ethereum, and that didn't seem very scalable. And there was this new project called Tendermint that was taking place in 2017. We really loved that product, and that we started, building on top of Tendermint, and eventually started contributing back to Tendermint. And now we are one of the core contributors to Cosmos. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, Cosmos ecosystem and Akash, it's getting momentum right now, which is great. So let's focus a little bit on Akash, because you've discussed it already. Data centers that have underutilized positions there. What is the actual problem that Akash is trying to solve, and what is the vision of Akash in itself?
Yeah, so there's like I discussed, there's enormous amounts of unused capacity, but why, right? So just if you trace back a little bit, right? Companies have data centers and they process their data in these data centers. You can otherwise call these data centers the cloud. So every one of us, we all use a cloud to a certain degree, which is, arguably one of the most important fabrics of our society, right? All your data sits on the cloud. And this cloud is just someone else's computer running a data center, essentially. That's what a cloud is, right? So companies own these data centers. And as more and more people are going to the cloud, a big challenge companies face is, how do you manage capacity? How do you know how many servers to buy, right? So, and it's very challenging because you have this peak load periods. Like if you're someone like Intuit, which makes TurboTax software behind a lot of folks in the US use TurboTax to file taxes. During tax season, they run at like 98% capacity, which is 3 months of the year. During non-tax season, they run at 5% capacity, right? So if you look at Walmart, for example, Walmart during shopping season, be it Christmas or or Thanksgiving or whatnot, they run at peak capacity, and most of the time they're not running at peak capacity. You have this peak capacity problem in data center management, right? So that's why, and well, to solve the problem, there was this whole revolution of the cloud service providers called Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Alibaba that control about 81% of the market share. And they started like offering this cloud on demand. So the idea was like, well, you don't have to buy all these data centers and buy all this compute. You can just buy, services on demand from us and give it to you. So you have this like enormous, like unused capacity sitting there, and you have these cloud providers coming in trying to like add a little more capacity on top of that, and kind of like taking advantage of the mispricing, right? So that's why they were able to like build a large competitive mode. In reality, we all know the price is not what it is. I mean, yeah, in reality, a lot of these companies end up paying a lot more than what they would pay for a data center. So there's a repatronization of the data center, right? So people are actually owning their data centers back. But now you have the problem of like underutilization. So what Akash is trying to really solve for these data center providers is take that resources that are underutilized and offer to a market, a tenant that can use these resources at a much more lower cost, sometimes 2 to 3 times lower than what they would pay the big cloud providers, be it Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So Akash is solving an efficiency problem that existed for a while, for a long time in the cloud infrastructure, right? And second thing is, so a lot of the tools that developers use to deploy on Amazon's or the big clouds are arcane. They're designed for a world that is so disconnected from what the developer is looking for today, right? And these companies were founded in 2006 and 2007, and they haven't really improved their developer tooling. And this is the problem I'm very passionate about. And so, and the solution to the problem is open source, right? So you can't have like these oligopolies that create and you can't expect like a big, large oligopolies to be actually aligned with their customer base, which is developers, right? And third is, of course, you have the problem of censorship. So as you know, I mean, in the light of recent events, there is no guarantee that you that you will be served the resources that you would need, right? And we saw that a lot happening these days. You don't have to be like extremely controversial to be taken down. Even for a small, like as we in crypto really have first-hand experience with that kind of censorship, even for a small misalignment with a company's policy or whatever you want to call it, you can get taken down. So there is censorship, and there is cost, and there is productivity. What Akash is trying to solve is these three problems, and the only way to do that is to remove the essence of control and centralization, to really go with an open model, both for the source code as well as the data, and provide a platform that's permissionless, permissionless and self-sovereign and custodial, non-custodial. And that's what Akash is. Akash is, in a sense, the first open source cloud.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to understand from you is that the whole centralization right now is bringing the price up heavily, which is like the customer doesn't have a different choice than taking that, as there's just no other providers. So that's why the price is significantly higher. You don't get the resources, as like, where are you going to? So Akash is trying to solve that entire issue and censorship, etc. But how are you going to use blockchain in that perspective in the decentralized cloud? What is the use case of blockchain in that?
Right. So in order to create there are a few areas. So let me break it down, right? So the first one is technology, right? So from a pure technical standpoint, like I described to you, edge computing, Akash works on multiple data centers across the board. We don't, any data center with compute capacity can contribute to Akash. So when you have such a widely distributed architecture, you need to go for a fault-tolerant architecture where there's no centralized depository for data, because that could go down. You know what I mean? So, if you deploy anything at scale, the issues of centralization. Right? So there is this fundamental problem of state synchronicity or state consistency, we call it, for configuration. So we needed a peer-to-peer solution. So that's the first use case with blockchain that we use. How do you manage these configuration files across the board, right? And second thing is, Well, how do you pay for things in an open environment? You can't have a payment processor. Like, I mean, who's going to maintain the relationship with a bank with a payment processor? So there's a value exchange problem that is very dominant, right? So now you need a token on top to even do value exchange. And third is like, well, so you have a decentralized blockchain. How do you expect to get into consensus? One problem is like, well, you can go proof of work, but proof of work is inherently super hard to bootstrap. Well, the best solution happens to be proof of stake. And how do you secure a proof of stake chain? By having tokens and by assigning one vote to one token, right? So, and the token here becomes an integral part. Now, initially that began as a value exchange. Now it becomes part of the security of the blockchain, right? Well, what else? What else can you do with this token? You can also create incentives, right? So one of the things we use inflation for is incentivizing and bootstrapping the security now, and in the future we'll be bootstrapping or even bootstrapping growth, right? So we'll be using some of these incentives that we create from inflation to subsidize some of the compute, which is a tried and tested method for a lot of the traditional industries we see, like code industry in the United States has been subsidized using a lax monetary policy, or if you look at textile industries in India, they've relied on a monetary policy to actually bootstrap some of these industries, and we're borrowing some of those ideas. I've written several papers on this, and it's in our blog. You should go check it out. But yeah, you can do a lot with a sovereign monetary policy on top of the technical capabilities the blockchain provides. And I think if you look at these benefits, what a decentralized system provides for an open source entity, it's like obvious to not go decentralized. I don't even know why you would do centralized software anymore.
Well, there are some arguments for those big companies to be made that they are not going decentralized. Like you're a competitor of them, essentially. So you have been saying the token is being used to transfer value, but also to stake and secure the entire ecosystem. How is that going to work inside the Akash ecosystem? As in, some projects you can just transfer tokens to a wallet and then you stake them. But I've seen that Akash is having a mini or a supercomputer you can have in your house as well. So how does that staking process work with the project that you're working on?
So staking is integral to Akash, right? So staking is secure, is the means to secure the blockchain, right? So you get tokens, and in a proof of stake consensus mechanism, you have to vote. Every token has to vote, right? And obviously, you can't be there to vote on every block. So you delegate your tokens to a validator that'll vote on your behalf, right? And the validator charges a commission. So every validator charges different commission tiers, and some of them charge like 1%, or some of them even do 0% to market themselves. But usually they charge a commission so that they're managing tokens on your behalf. And there is, of course, a lockup time when you're committing to a validator, so that way they know that you're going to be participating in this consensus, right? So the token here is secure in the blockchain itself. Now, and for which you get rewards, right? So you earn rewards, and those rewards again are liquid, and you can choose to stake them, or you can choose to use them for competition purposes, or even for open market operations as well. So and the other ways you can earn these tokens is actually becoming a provider on the network. So if you have a data center, you can actually install Akash Agent on your computer. Mainnet 2 is live, so it's permissionless, and you can do it right now. Or you can buy one of the devices that we will be shipping end of the year, called Super Mini, which is essentially a very tiny portable version of what a data center computer would look like. It's not nearly anywhere as powerful as a data center, but before we can get there, we need to make sure the economics and the network is primed to even accept something like a super mini. And the reason we're delaying is to get to that level of maturity, right? So yeah, there's several ways you can earn tokens. You can earn tokens by staking. You can earn tokens by being a provider on the network. And the way you spend these tokens is to use computation services Akash provide to host your applications or your databases and whatnot.
And then next, the computer itself looks pretty cool as well. So that's also a nice addition. Then
By the way, you don't need the super mini to provide compute. It's just a
Yes.
supplementary thing. It's designed for a home use. It's designed for plug and
Mhm.
earn. It's not the most powerful thing in the world. It's actually very compact. It's a home use computer.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a very
yeah,
small, cool thing to have. But like,
exactly.
Akash,
And we're
and you
already
have.
making like 300 of these. So, and we have like 15,000 people on the wait list.
Well, that's going to be hard to get. One almost feels like it's an iPhone, right? Or the new PS5.
Yeah.
But next to that, you've decided to build it on the Cosmos ecosystem. And there are so many projects out there that are actually platforms like Polkadot, Cardano, Ether. Why did you choose to go to Cosmos, and what is it offering you in difference to the other two or other three that's maybe better than those?
Yeah, so you got to remember, we started building the blockchain in 2017. So, and when you're looking back then, we evaluated Ether, which was the only possible platform that we could go to. And this was when CryptoKitties launched, and I think it took down the Ethereum blockchain after 40,000 signups. And we were like, well, this is not going to work for us, obviously, right? I'm glad we didn't build it on Ethereum, or else you had to pay $1,000 to deploy an application that will cost you $20. You know. Anyway, so we built the original prototype just to test it out on Ethereum, which is really good for building prototypes, right? But then soon we realized that's not going to work out for us. And then there was this project called Tendermint, which was building towards Cosmos, right? So Cosmos is this chain, and Tendermint is the consensus engine behind Cosmos. And we started building on Tendermint because number one, it was very attractive for us because it was the only like library that you can actually adopt, and we didn't want to go to another chain where you're exposed to their economics and you're exposed to all the problems, the underlying problems, or that chain potentially has. Like if you look at Polkadot, right, the big problem right now is um, the cost to launch a Polkadot chain is exuberant. No normal chains can launch. You can only have 100 parachains in Polkadot. I don't know if you know this, right? So you got to bid for it. So Polkadot didn't even exist back when we were starting to build. And Ethereum was obviously not not a feasible, not a practical chain for something like uh, infrastructure. It's probably good for DeFi, right? And probably good for assets that have enormous in value, but we're looking at saving costs. It's kind of like opposite to where we are going with our approach of competition. So there was really nothing available back then. And number two, it was Golang, right? So we are built using Go, and we've been building with Go for at least good 6 years to 7 years, maybe. And we looked at Tendermint. Definitely is a language that we can work with, and in case there are issues with it, we can actually go contribute. So when we're choosing a library, we look at like, well, we don't really look for pure maturity. We look for, can we actually jump in and help in case of problems with the library. And third is they were very pragmatic, right? So like a lot of the other projects like promise quite a bit and really don't really deliver. But looking at Tendermint, they were very honest, and they were like, hey, look, this is where we are and this is where we are going. We're not going to wait to build a perfect product. We're going to ship a decently usable product that you can actually use and build with us. And they're very communal focus, and we really like that a lot. And we saw that pattern kind of similar to what we see success in other open source projects, being open source developers, for a while, looking at Kubernetes, looking at Docker. We saw similar patterns in terms of how community kind of like engages with the project, and it seemed very, very promising in 2017. And glad we took that bet. Now, of course, we actually ended up building on Tendermint. We didn't use the Cosmos SDK as much, and we ended up building a lot of custom software on top of Tendermint, and we shipped like the first version of the testnet in 2019, um, that we demonstrated to the community that it can work and whatnot. And then we adopted Cosmos SDK in 2020 uh, or late 2019, because what we built wasn't it needed a lot more work, and we deleted like I think 100,000 lines of code or probably more. So for us, deleting code means better. The less code we maintain, less attack surface
Mhm.
we have. So it's always better to have less code to maintain. That's the ethos that we live under. It's sad. It's opposite to what whole crypto community talks about like how many lines of code you wrote, or how many commits you did. Like, no, you gotta. If you're mature enough, you're like, well, God, it doesn't work that way, right? The less you write, the better it is. Unfortunately, the reality is we end up writing a lot more code than what we like to write. But we also like to contribute back to Cosmos, right? So anything we feel like is important, we'll take it out of our repos and give it back to Cosmos. So we maintain the relayer code for IBC. We maintain a lot of the Cosmos core software as well. So having said that, we really got involved with them very early, and we were part of, and they were instrumental in us launching our blockchain. And we were very aligned with the community, so much so that we actually started contributing back to Cosmos. And a lot of the folks that worked at Cosmos ended up working at Akash for a brief while. We have Sunny Agarwal, we have Jack Zample, and all the other great people at Cosmos as advisors. Jack worked with us briefly for 6 months as a product manager. So we have a lot of like alignment with Cosmos community, and rightfully so. They're blowing up, and I think that's the, and we're not the only ones that feel the way we feel about Cosmos. And the entire ecosystem has very similar feelings, and a lot of the Cosmos developers tend to be a lot more mature and a lot more grounded compared to any other field that I don't want to talk about more.
Let's not go that way before we get all those communities up on us back. Also, I would love to discuss two big launches recently. The first one is the IBC, inter-blockchain communication on Atom itself. How do you believe that that's going to benefit the growth of the Cosmos ecosystem and also Akash and also on the ecosystem of Cosmos, and you're working on it as well? How are this going to benefit the two of you?
Oh, it's a game changer, and the reason for that is, so right now, what makes Ethereum powerful is composability, right? And the ecosystem, in the sense like you can take a loan from one money market and you can make some other operation in a different market, because they all share the state. They all share the same database, right? So like operating on a single database, right? And just calling different functions. Well, that's great if we all know that you can do that in a single database, but we all know that's not scalable, right? So what Ethereum proved out, I think Ethereum is a proof of concept more than a real scalable architecture. And it's obvious with the gas fees that we are paying and the shared fee model, all that is just not scalable, right? And I'm glad we have the product market fit that we have in Ethereum that just tells you that this world is ready for a decentralized world, application stack like DeFi or NFTs. But that's so very prohibitive to a layer or to a sub-market that can afford these costs, right? Like you cannot do anything. And if you're not doing anything over like 10,000 or maybe even $100,000 on DeFi, there's no point in getting DeFi. Like you can't just do like $100, deposit and expect to earn, right? You just get bogged down in fees. So now we need a more scalable architecture, and the scalable architecture is never a single chain, right? Even sharding and all these don't make any sense because you're always going to have this cross chain problems you got to solve, and that's where IBC is going to is solving. Actually, it's their launch and they're doing phenomenally well because we all know the way to scale massive systems is through interoperability. We got to figure out how to work with each other instead of trying to build everything on a single platform, right? Building on a single platform is not scalable, but if we can decouple these networks and figure out how to interoperate or like communicate between these networks is how traditionally systems have scaled. Look at Unix systems, look at systems on the internet, look at any system, right? You don't build everything on a single website. There's a reason why they're decoupling, right? And if you think about that, IBC is the TCP IP of blockchains, right? So it's an interconnectivity system. And Akash now is the second chain to connect to IBC. We just put a proposal yesterday. I mean, some of our community members, so within 10 days, we will be connected to the IBC. And we have IrisNet connected to the IBC now. And we have Thor chain that's coming soon to IBC. And we have several other chains that are going to connect to IBC. And this will first enable cross-chain atomic composability, we call it. That means atomically being able to compose across different blockchains using IBC. Composability is very limited today to Ethereum ecosystem, but soon with IBC, you're going to have multiple blockchains get this advantage. That means you can take a loan um, on you can borrow on Kava and you can deposit on Thorchain, right? These are two separate networks, right? And it's not only limited to Cosmos chains. It's the world is open to it. For Akash, we really look at IBC as number one. We're going to improve liquidity for AKT token. So there's going to be a lot of DEX support. And the reason we're not on DEXs right now is because we're not Ethereum chain, right? And we didn't want to do like a half-ass Ethereum bridge. Most Ethereum bridges out there are not very secure, right? We wanted to do, true decentralized, highly secure bridges. So by enabling IBC, we can connect to Peggy, which is doing amazing work in building a Ethereum bridge, which is almost ready to go. So we are really excited to get that DEX support and liquidity for AKT. And second, we're looking at is really enabling or completing a vision for an interoperable cloud, interoperable D cloud. So today we have enormous services that are extremely useful for a decentralized world, and not too many people use them because they're extremely complicated to use. Number one being, so today if you want to deploy a sensitive service, you can go use Akash and use a NuCypher, right? But you got to use NuCypher tokens to pay for NuCypher, Akash tokens to pay for Akash. And if you want DNS, you have to use Handshake. Again, you have this like token problem. Or and if you want to use some storage along with compute, Akash provides, you have to use Storage or Saya, Skynet. And again, you got to use the tokens. So in order to do anything like meaningful that requires multiple networks, you got to handle these tokens. We don't think that's the best way to do it. We think paying using one token, be it Akash or Saya or Handshake, whatever token you have, or even Ethereum for all you care, and get all these access to all these services in a frictionless and a fully interoperable world. There's not too much to ask, right? And that's really what we want to build with IBC. And we look at IBC as the foundation layer that is going to enable frictionless interoperability with atomic composability. And it's a game changer in any way you slice it. I'm really excited about it.
Well, Atom and IBC with the IBC are doing really well, but Akash is also progressing really fast as just you've launched recently Mainnet 2. Could you elaborate what Mainnet 2 is going to bring for Akash and what is the game change for the project itself?
Right. So Mainnet 2 is a completion of our white paper. What we promised in our white paper in 2017, this is what we delivered, right? And the reason we launched two mainnets is we wanted to build and bootstrap security first before we can launch the platform to de-risk some of the, attack surface that you normally have with larger, builds, right? So we wanted to make sure we have a solid foundation with Mainnet 2. Mainnet 1, we introduced staking and we introduced consensus, and we essentially deployed a database, right? That's what the Mainnet 1 was, right? And of course, bootstrap liquidity as a side effect to that. And Mainnet 2 is the platform. It is the first time we are seeing a decentralized exchange for cloud computing, wherein users enjoy a reverse auction marketplace. So providers can provide compute and users can actually bid on the compute and enjoy cost. I believe right now with the current provider set, at least half of what you would pay on Amazon. So right now, and that's going to get better as we get more providers down the line. And second is we added a trustability feature that we didn't talk about in our mainnet. As you know, in a decentralized network, you don't know who actually is providing the right amount of resources. So we solved the problem using a feature called audited attributes that improves security and improves trust in a decentralized computing network without compromising performance. And it is fully non-custodial and permissionless and self-sovereign. This is the first time the Akash token has a utility beyond staking and the transfer operations. So again, this is the base layer. This is the layer we start building upon. And this is the foundation for a lot of the work that we are really excited about that's coming in the future. And again, it is very unique, and there's nothing like Akash out there, both centralized and decentralized world. So And we're really excited about it, and a little bit anxious as well because there's a lot of things happening, and
Mhm.
2 days of no sleep. It's a lot of fun too.
Well, I can feel you. I've got it with trading, but that's a completely different game. But let's discuss a few. I've got a few questions surrounding some not saying problems, but you still have to work with a competitor, which are those centralized um, companies like Amazon, Google. They are providing solutions already. And with being a decentralized cloud service, you have to live on clients, right? You have to self-fulfilling prophecy in which people are going to watch you. Otherwise, there's no sense of using your platform either way. So what is going to drive those clients away from decentralized companies towards you? And how do you believe that they're going to react? Like you have been making these ideas of like what are these centralized companies? What can they do against us? Not too much
Right.
probably, but those two things. What is your answer regarding that?
Yeah, first off, you don't see them as competition. You see them as complementary, right? So such a different model compared to a centralized model, right? So centralized companies are Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. They're just providing compute and services on top of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're free to use Akash. I can't stop them. They can stop me. I can't stop them. So Akash is it is the cloud of cloud. The name Akash is a Sanskrit word for the sky. It is where the clouds are formed. It's where the clouds come together. You know what I mean? So it is a cloud of cloud, right? It's a super cloud in a way, right? And it makes their business more efficient. Like if you have compute you want to offload, you come to Akash and you sell your compute. So it's actually better for these centralized companies, actually cloud providers, Amazon's and Google's and Microsoft's, to use Akash to offload compute, right? In fact, we're actually seeing, I can't talk about some of the things, but actually we're seeing some amazing interest in a lot of the big guys. And now, of course, we attracted our first provider, Equinix. Equinix is the largest data center provider in the world. It is the network with the largest interconnected data centers, about 220 data centers uh, in about 25 countries or something. That's a lot of data centers. And these Equinix provides compute for Amazon and Google and Microsoft. That is their customers, right? So we're going directly to the source and obviously going to get a lot cheaper because you cut the middleman out, right? So it is not a competition, it's complementary. And why people are attracted, or why we think people are attracted to Akash is number one, cost, right? It's just cheaper. Like, so if you tell me you don't like money, I'll be surprised. And number two, productivity. It just makes things a lot more simple. The interface that we develop is significantly better than how you would deploy on Amazon. For to simplify things, if it takes about, I don't know, 5 hours on Amazon, it takes about 10 minutes on Akash. So it's very easy to use interface. And if you're a developer, you will know the value of this interface. And we kind of took inspiration from Docker Compose, and I don't want to get too tech speak, but it's actually super simple to use. And for a decentralized product, that's a lot to say. But having no sign up and having no email addresses and verifications and all this crap actually is way simpler to just get started. As long as you have tokens, you're good to go. So it's like using Uniswap versus using a centralized exchange. I love Uniswap, except minus the fees, but I love Uniswap because it's just, imagine the experience that you like to swap tokens on a centralized exchange. You go, you log in, you verify the captcha like every goddamn time, and then
Nice.
you go, you got to make sure you got that traffic lights right, and then you go, you deposit your tokens, wait for I don't know, 15 verifications, wait for this email, then you swap, and then you pay the fee, and then you swap out, and then you again withdraw, type your Google authenticator, type your mother's birthday. It's so extraneous process versus going to Uniswap, click, done. I will pay the
Mhm.
extra fee if I have to, right? But I like that user experience a lot better. So imagine that level of user experience. It's very convoluted right now on the cloud. If you deploy something, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But Akash is so smooth, right? And in fact, we had incredible success in the testnet. We had about 480 developers, monthly active developers on the testnet. And we have this user managed repository called Awesome Akash, and people share what they built on Akash. And we had close to over 100 applications in all kinds of games and databases and DeFi frontends, and all is created by these people, and that kind of validated that people love this interface, and you'll see the response from people were just phenomenal, right? So people really like this, and we're looking forward to more people using this and the word spreading, and not only from like decentralized space. We're seeing a lot of interest from outside the traditional cloud space, right? And third, we see a lot of interest from the decentralized finance and crypto world because it's censorship resistant, right?
Mhm.
So you really don't have an option today if you want a censorship resistant crowd. And what's happening today, like to deploy anything, you're at risk. There's no guarantee you're going to get competition services. And so that Akash offers, and I think these three, cost, productivity, and censorship resistance, is a very powerful combination.
Well, I think in the entire blockchain space and crypto and progressing from here, the user interface still has, the user experience still has to improve, not only for Akash, but in general, it's just still a very
I actually
complicated show.
like, yeah. So, but actually, don't you think Uniswap is better than Binance?
It is, but the fees are just killing it. Otherwise, everybody would use Uniswap.
Exactly. With Uniswap, the fees will get solved. I mean, Cosmos will come to solve this problem, right?
Yeah.
Once that's going to happen. I mean, right now, if you look at what Familiar, Zaki's company, new product is doing, Zaki Manan, he's a leader in Cosmos. He They introduced a new DeFi money market called Familiar, which de-risks a lot of the LP risks that you have, like with impermanent loss and whatnot, and of course built on Cosmos, so it makes it a lot cheaper. And you look at what Sunny Agarwal is working on, Osmosis. They're amazing products that are coming in DeFi, and these are really smart people working on amazing products, right? So I think it's only a matter of time, and that's our demo with vHarvest doing an AMM demo with on using IBC, and it's only a matter of time. I would give it like maybe 4 months, maybe 6 months at tops, that you're going to see incredible products built in Cosmos that are coming up. And I've seen these like firsthand being in the space, but I think more people are going to realize, and that's really where we truly understand that you don't have to pay like $1,000 in gas fees to do a lot of the operations. I'm really excited for Cosmos.
Well, I agree with you that it's also going to push mass adoption the moment that it's going to be easy to use. So once that's going to be pushing everywhere in the world, it's going to push the entire market further. But you've been saying about DeFi that it could also benefit from Akash, right? So how do you expect that a decentralized cloud solution can add value to the entire DeFi industry?
Oh yeah, so Thorchain recently tweeted out that they're giving 1,000 rune for anybody to deploy Thor nodes on Akash, right? And the reason why they're doing this is, it's about $5,000, and we are offering about 250 AKT, I think, but we should up our ante to match their ante because I think it's a really amazing use case. Thorchain developers are anonymous developers, right? And you need this anonymity for innovation, right? And the reason why they're having all the success and the reason why they're able to take a lot more risks is because of anonymity, right? And they hate putting their credit cards on Amazon. Like why? Like why would you be an anonymous developer and put your name and your credit card? Like yeah. So the first use case for DeFi nodes is like, well, to maintain your anonymity and to create a truly ownerless services, Akash is the platform to go. And second, it costs about $25,000 to get Ethereum node on Ethereum, right? Like
Hmm.
it's super expensive. Like if you're a developer trying to develop stuff, it is prohibitive for a lot of these guys. Like how about getting the same node for half the cost, if not more, on Akash, right? So it de-risks both from in front of like in terms of both your regulatory and your anonymity risk, as well as um, your cost risk, right? That you had to incur, and so it's the perfect place for hosting your DeFi applications,
Well,
both nodes as well as front ends.
that's wonderful, and I would love to ask you as well. Like we've been discussing all the progress that you were making in the past few months and recently as well on the Atom ecosystem. What can we expect from Akash from here? As you've just launched Mainnet 2, which is essentially the white paper, right? What is the roadmap from here onwards?
So for the next couple of months, we're going to make sure that we have stability, we have security, and we have simplicity, right? This is going
I
to
love
be the
that.
pinnacle. Like we just launched a blockchain, right? And we're not going to be like, oh, what's the next feature we're going to build? No, we don't think about new features, but we look at how do we make our features right now that we built more adoptable. So adoption is going to be our biggest priority post launch.
Mhm.
But from a feature standpoint, one of the big features that we'll be working on. Actually, we have three big categories, but one big category that I'm excited about is right now Akash is ephemeral storage in the sense that what you store in Akash is you're not you it does it's not permanent, right? It can go away, right? And the design for the system is built that way. But we see a desire for more permanent storage. So we'll be working with for potentially a more permanent storage, so you can actually run large database nodes or even blockchain nodes, right? Like if you have anything over a terabyte, it makes it a little hard to synchronize on Akash, right? So we'll probably solve that problem. And second thing I'm really excited about is a peer-to-peer machine learning cloud. So we see incredible demand for GPUs at Akash, especially machine learning companies, right? So it's prohibitive for a lot of these companies to be on Amazon. So what these companies normally do is they tend to host their own servers inside their offices, and they only use these like servers maybe like 2 hours, 3 hours a day. So most of the time, if they're not using them, it's just sitting there idle, right? And when they want to use them, they tend to peak. They tend to need more, and they go to the cloud, right? 20% of revenues for these machine learning companies is going to the cloud. And recent Horowitz published an incredible report. I highly recommend people check it out. It's really a big problem today, right? They can't use a cloud, they can't make the revenues. In a scenario like that, we love for these companies to install Akash and earn the credits, AKT tokens, when they're not using it. And when they want to peak, they can further go use these credits to tokens to actually get more compute. So this is the use case where where the provider becomes a tenant and vice versa, creating a truly peer-to-peer cloud. And in order for that to happen, is we need to enable GPU computation, which we had to solve for GPU multi-tenancy, which is not the exact easy thing to solve. But once we solve that, we're going to see. I mean, we have this companies knocking on our door, right? Even Solana, we, Anatoly and me, we have this conversation every week. Like, when is GPUs coming? When is GPUs coming? Because Solana runs on a GPU infrastructure. We're like, well, getting there, solving like one problem at a time. But we have this enormous demand for GPUs that I'm really excited about that we'll be working on, right? And third thing is economics. Like I talked about the subsidies and the stake model. I'm not too sure if you know too much about Akash economics. Is right now we use inflation as to bootstrap engagement, but that'll soon shift to take income. So a percentage of the hosting fees goes back to the token stakers, right? Instead of inflation. Inflation is on a decay curve, so that keeps coming down. As that keeps coming down, the hosting fees will go up. So the reason why we have this curve is because right now this adoption is not, I mean, it's today, so we don't have the current demand. But soon that demand, as it ramps up, will have some meaningful revenue, right? So that we're not going to turn on value capture early, because that could be detrimental to growth of the network, right? So, but that's something that people should be looking forward to, Akash Network token. So that's really when like inflation is not sustainable. We all know that, right? So that's when the maybe, I don't know, if you talk to the Fed, maybe they have a different answer.
I just wanted to bring it on, yeah.
Yeah, but in our case, we're a deflationary token. We're inflationary now, deflationary later, right? But we believe in real value. That's real revenue earned from the network should go back to the token holders, because they are the owners of the network, right? So because token is coupling ownership and utility, and that's what makes crypto really amazing. And so that's a third area that we'll be working on. We'll soon publish a more detailed roadmap that is currently being vetted by the community, and we do a lot of work. We're very communal focused, so we're a community contributed and community vetted roadmap that we'll be publishing. And one more thing we'll be doing is we're going to be giving out grants So we're not going to develop it ourselves. We're going to have community do it. We found that to be a lot better instead of developing in silo. So we'll be releasing a few grants for community to build certain features along with Akash Core Devs. And the mainnet 2 is version 1.0. And from now on, everything we do is going to be extremely public.
Well, that's wonderful, man. There's lots of stuff to expect from your project. And before I want to finish off and ask you where we can find Akash, I always have a personal question as we are discussing Akash in the Atom ecosystem a lot. My personal question to any CEO of any project is, what is your life's goal? It's like everybody that I talk to is idealist, is solving a solution or solving a problem in the world. What is your life goal? If you are 40 years older than now, when do you feel satisfied and happy with what you've done?
Um, Let's see. Well, I want to make computing accessible to everybody. Anybody that wants to use his computing. For some background, I grew up on a farm in India, right? And I grew up not exactly rich, or not even like middle class for the matter, right? For me, I learned how to code using books. I didn't have a computer. I learned how to code when I was 12 because that was very fascinating. And I had to borrow computing, and getting computer time was very, very hard. And I want to make sure the next generation is not going to find it hard. Now, computing has moved to the cloud, right? Like everybody has a computer, or a mobile phone, as a matter of fact, but real powerful computing is on a cloud, and it's still like very inaccessible for a lot of the world, right? So kids in India or and elsewhere, it's really hard for them to actually get Amazon instances, right? And I want to change that. And I want to make it affordable to a degree that 10-year-olds can get cloud power if they want. So that's in 4 years. I'd like to see that.
Well, that's a target to make that in 4 years, but that's beautiful as a mission, man. To finalize this beautiful interview, where can we find you? Where can we find Akash? And maybe do you have anything to share to our listeners before we're going to finish off?
So all information is obviously our website is the best place to go. Akash.network is where you go for a website. Me, I'm personally very, very active on Twitter. My handle is at Greg Osuri. And of course, Akash Twitter is very active as well. Handle is AkashNet_. And if you ping me on Twitter, I'm very quick to respond. Please reach out to me. And we have a thriving developer community on Discord, discord.akash.network, and we have a amazing community on Telegram as well. t.me/AkashNW is our handle. And I'm very active in all these channels.
Wonderful, man. Then I'm going to thank you very much and everybody for watching. Thank you for being here, Greg. All the best with the project as well. And
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Michael. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, man.